What's up? Greetings, everybody. This is Mike, aka Mr. Legit Hustle. Y'all know me, your homie, your brother from another mother. First and foremost, thank you for checking me out, for being here rocking with me. Could have been anywhere else on the internet, on YouTube, but you're here watching my content, so I just want to thank you. I also want to ask you something. Do you have a dream or goal that you feel driven to pursue? Or maybe you're like me and you're already deep in the pursuit of your dream or whatever that goal is, and you like a little motivation and direction in overcoming the challenges that you face. You know, sometimes we doubt ourselves. Sometimes we get afraid of failing. Or maybe you just need some inspiration from time to time. Well, I want to encourage you to never allow yourself to fall victim to discouragement. When you choose to pursue a goal or a dream in your life, know that you're going to get met with opposition and challenges. It just comes with the territory. But there's too much at stake for you to quit. And if you're like me, then you've come too far and through too much to ever give up on that dream or that goal. So, I want to invite you to grab one or two or all of my legit motivation presentations. You can watch the videos on my Legit Motivation Podcast on my YouTube channel. And if you see one that you like, you can download the actual slide presentation that I developed and used in that video. That way, you can review the information in depth at your own pace. Now, each slide presentation is packed with factual, reputable, and verifiable information from reliable sources, as well as the game I've learned in 46 years on this realm. So head over to my Legit Motivation Podcast on YouTube or go to 𝐬𝐿GHUSTLE.com. Presentations are free, but if you'd like to support the channel, then you can donate there as well. Whether you do or don't, the presentations are yours to keep. Plus, you'll get a special bonus offer on all of my products and services when you download your first presentation. So head over to 𝐬𝐿GHUSTLE.com or look for the link in the comment section of the video that you like. Alright? Again, thank you for rocking with me. Enjoy the rest of the show. Peace. I've worked too hard to stop now. But it seems like every time I turn around, it's somebody hating. I need to ride. Yo, yeah.
Rest in peace, nigga.
Yo, man, this one goes out to everybody out there getting it on it.
And every other soul.
However you getting paid, however you paying your bills, hopefully it's legit. You know what I'm saying? But even if it ain't, do the best you can, you know what I'm saying? And get it on your own. Yeah, West Coast, slow motion. Waking up the morning views of the ocean, freshen up your swag, roll up your neck back, 40 on your hip, dip to the west side. Between the trees and the breeze is where you reside. You let the 6-4 dip slow side to side. The good life, no longer stressing on that hood stripe. Your kids best, you can't fetch it, doing all right. On top of that, today you rhyme with your lady. Yep, that's your baby. Play with her, they must be crazy. Had the hood going crazy when them shop doors open. Fine cuts in the city, that's what you been promoting. Plus it's clear to see that every real G is positive to the community. Productivity, that's the slogan. Pushing back on the force is trying to stop us wrong. They can't hold it back. When the door of opportunity opens up for you like a Cadillac, you ain't having that. You came too far to try and travel back. And plus that's way too whack. So when the plans stay rolling and the dope keep folding while your life unfolding, then you keep going. Never mind the haters, can't make or break you. Where the hustle take you when your faith don't forsake you. Yeah, it feels good when you getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in, fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS to rare when life ends. You stone. It feels good when you getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in, fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS yes, a real life. But don't expect it to be easy breezy. Besides being cheesy, it's slightly greasy, like an Eskimo trying to sell your bro that don't love the pole. His ass still ain't free. The truth is, you take the good with the bad. If it's worth it, then on purpose, it ain't easy to be had. But don't let it stop you, cause unless they pop you, then you gotta know the wind's already in the bag. It takes thick skin to walk amongst men that don't comprehend the grind that you're living in. Unfortunately, it usually proves to be negativity from friends and your family. But when you focus, you can't get caught slipping. You cool ranch while you living. Fly with eagle, not chickens, and you bound to see between you and me that there's no enemies. And yes, success is the proof. Me, I'm still noodle flowing in the booth. If you need more proof, go and check me mirror, cause it couldn't be clearer that you're bound for the top. So stay on your grind and don't you dare ever stop it. When the roadblocks act like mad cops, that only means you're just a mirror, homie, just watch. Ain't no need to be silent when you're made of iron. And for winners like you, there's no such thing as trying. It feels good when you're getting it on your own. Pushing fly whips, putting families in fly homes. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS to bread with like 20 stones. It feels good when you're getting it on your own. Pushing fly whips, putting families in fly homes. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS to bread with like 20 stones. And there you have it. You know what I'm saying? This goes out to everybody out there getting it on their own. Like I said, you over there, feel me? The fade, all the barbershops, hair salons, nail salons, massage parlors, dentist office, soul food, restaurants, whatever you do, man. You work for yourself, it's your anthem right here, man. It's my salute to you. I see you get it on your own. And if you employ other people, you're a real life hero. You know what I'm saying? Salute. Yeah. Keep getting it on your own.
Beats.
Yeah. We back. What's going on, everybody? It is he is I, your homie, your brother from another mother, the one and only, Mr. Legit Hustle himself. Yeah, in the building, man. This is the SMB Podcast. It's a little bit different from my legit motivation shows that I do live. The SMB Podcast is more focused and intended for small business owners, hence the name SMB, which stands for small, medium businesses. So this is for the business owners, the hustlers, the people out there getting it on their own. This is that show. We dive deep. We get into real business topics over here. We talk about real things. Not just the regular, typical surface level business conversations, right? So today is going to be a play, if you will, a twist on a very old subject or a very old topic. And it's based on the saying, if you've been involved in marketing or maybe even sales, you've probably heard the saying that the money is in the list. Well, this presentation today is based on that premise that the money in your business is actually inside your list. Now, if you've been in business at any time, like I said, especially if you've been very hands-on in marketing or sales, you're probably familiar with that term, and you're probably familiar with why a list is actually so valuable. Now, the old lists were pretty simple, right? If you had a list of names, emails, or even if you go back even further, mailing addresses and home phone numbers, you had the capability at your disposal to personally contact the customers, the clients of your business at will. Now, modern lists, they're based essentially on the same foundations that those traditional lists are based upon, except modern lists are living, breathing data sets, and they're kept in something different, something that you've probably heard, but may not be exactly sure what it is. It might sound too technical for you, but today we're going to break it down and show you how this technical term that we use every day, or that you've probably heard every day, is an evolution of the money being in your list in business. But before we get into that, let's talk about some things that have not changed, right? So this isn't a presentation that's going to contradict traditional values, traditional business foundational principles. This is not going to contradict that, but better yet, it's going to expand it, extend it a bit, and bring it more up to date. If you're not familiar with how modern business incorporates list building. Excuse me. Now, one thing that hasn't changed is that contact information is still the bedrock of your business relationship and your customer engagement, of course, right? Having their contact information, is the entryway into the game, into the exchange, into the interactions that we call business. But it's not the finish line. I know there was a time in my life early in business and working for myself that building a list seemed like the objective, like it was the goal, the finish line. And if you had it as a goal to build a big marketing list or a big Rolodex or whatever it took for you to make money in your business, that was still a profitable goal. It still contributed to your ability to make money, right? But it was never actually the finish line that it may have seemed to be for those of us who remember those days. So the contact information, like I said, is still the foundation. It's the primary asset that you can have in any of your customer lists. It has the highest core value for three main reasons. One, direct access, like I said. Having contact information for the customers of your business allows you to directly access them at will. Ownership. Having ownership of that contact information, unlike when you have social media followers or subscribers, you don't have control over the relationship because the platform is in the way. The platform is the intermediary, right? So on YouTube, if you have a bunch of subscribers, but you don't have a marketing list, YouTube is in the way. YouTube owns the list, right? Therefore, YouTube is in control of your relationship with that list because YouTube owns the list, aka your subscribers. Also, low cost reach. When you do use lists to directly contact clients, be it new clients, existing clients, prospective clients and customers, whatever, the cost is much lower, makes it much cheaper than when you have to use paid acquisition like Google ads, Facebook ads, Facebook promotion, TikTok promotion, YouTube promotions, right? So those are the three main reasons that the contact information on your list is still the primary core information. It's the core asset inside of a list. Then we get into demographics and categories. This is another traditional principle of a list in a business. And this gives you the power of segmentation, right? So segmentation means you can break a list down into different groups, right? So if you got a list of 1,000 people, you might have a list consisting of people ages 18 to 35. You might have a list of all the clients and customers that are female versus those that are male, right? This is what segmentation allows you to do. And this is another core foundation of having a list in your business. So these things aren't necessarily going to change. Will they ever change in the future? Possibly, I doubt it. But for the most part, these are core foundational principles. So I want to go over these because these things don't necessarily change because of the technology that we use nowadays. What it does is it actually just evolves. So we're discussing more of the evolution. So it's not necessarily a change from what you may be accustomed to. It's more a change in the way that you look at that information. All right. So one of the benefits or the advantages of having demographics and categories in your list is targeted messaging, right? If you can break your list down by categories like age, gender, sex, race, whatever categories you decide to break that list up into, you can target those groups based on those similar characteristics that they share, right? So it makes the messaging more targeted. It's not a one-size-fits-all communication. It's not a big mass flyer or mail or email campaign or a ad where you're just looking for people that might be looking for you. Nope, this is targeted based on categories and demographics. Also, campaign efficiency. Because you have information that makes the message unique to that particular group, you can make sure that you're delivering the right message to the right person at the right time, right? When it comes to marketing your business or selling or anything, when it comes to making money, timing is extremely important. Sometimes you can deliver the right message, you can say the right thing, but you can say it at the wrong time. Or the time might be right and you say the wrong thing, right? But when you have categories, demographics built into your list and you're able to segment that list, it increases the efficiency of it because it allows you to target and message people a lot more accurately than when you have to send out a broad, more general type of communication. Philly OG, what's going on, big dog? Appreciate you pulling up on me, brother. Also, customer grouping. So when you have the ability to segment your list in business, you can organize those audience again by different categories, be it industry, location, the type of service that they purchase from you, or the type of business that they may be in, different behavior patterns. Did they use a debit card versus did they pay with cash, right? So these type of things fall into the category of being demographics. And when you can have that in a list, again, that gives you the power of segmentation. And that's extremely important in business. Now, another traditionally core data set that we've typically recorded in lists in business is purchase history, right? So that we can understand what our past relationship has been like with any particular customer and particular client. And traditionally, that has helped us look into that customer's behavior, how they've engaged with us, right? But there's a gap in that because the purchase history only shows what's happened in the past, not what's likely to happen next. And when you're in business, you need to be forward thinking. You have to be able to look forward into the future to know what's going to be the next thing, where you need to move the business, what needs to be the next major decision that you need to make, right? So if you can have data or information that can more accurately tell you not what happened in the past, but rather what's more likely to happen in the future, then you can be not just descriptive, but you can be predictive, right? And so that gap between data typically just being descriptive and now it being able to be predictive is where our modern tools, the modern things that we use in business, the technology that we have fills that gap, right? And so you can develop and use and play with different strategies based on the tools that we have at our disposal now in ways that you couldn't in the past, right? So now let's talk about what lists look like in our modern time. Modern day lists are kept in what's called databases. Now, whether or not you're familiar with technology, you've still heard of a database. We're all familiar in 2026 with the term a database, right? And we're not going to get too much into the technical aspects of a database because that's not necessarily important for this discussion. But you do need to know that a database isn't just a bigger list, right? When you're using databases, it requires that you think about the information, how you're going to use it. Your relationship to the information has to evolve, right? This gives you access to capabilities that were not possible with the traditional list that we had. What's a traditional list? What's a simple way? A Rolodex, a phone book is a list, right? Contacts in your phone are lists. So we're not unfamiliar with lists, but what you may be unfamiliar with is how you should be using those lists as databases in modern business in 2026, right? So let's talk about some things about databases, some of the main differences, some of the main advantages between databases and traditional lists. Traditional lists are typically kept in things like spreadsheets, or like I mentioned earlier, even a physical Rolodex is a list, right? This is 3 areas that a database has an advantage over a spreadsheet. Number 1 is scalability. When you're building a list of clients and you have 10 people on your list, entering those people in manually on a spreadsheet, on a Google sheet, Excel sheet, or whatever, it's not a big deal, right? Filling out a physical client or customer card after you have a new customer or client come into your shop, into your boutique, whatever your business is, when it's just 3 or 4 people a week, it's not a big deal. But what that does is hinder you in the area of scalability, because how could that method handle thousands? And if you're doing something where you have a broad reach, e-commerce or anything of that nature, you maybe end up having to deal with millions of records at some point in your business. How does that work in a spreadsheet? It doesn't, right? So when it comes to ability to scale, to grow the information in those lists, a database wins in that area because it's scalable. A second area is relationships. When you're using a spreadsheet, you can write formulas and do things on a spreadsheet that will allow you to manipulate the data, but only on that spreadsheet. When you're using databases, you can connect data across tables. You can connect data across platforms. You can connect your website to Facebook, to Google, to YouTube, and all of them share information about your users, your viewers, your customers, the people who visit your website, whatever the case may be, right? So that advantage in relationship wise, the way the data relates to each other, the way you can use it, gives databases the win in that area. Again, we're talking about the architecture, just the architecture of a list. If we try to keep our business list, our client list, our contact list in some traditional, like a Rolodex or a spreadsheet, none of this becomes possible. Scalability isn't possible. Relationships aren't possible with a physical Rolodex. Very hard to do on your phone with just contacts, right? Another key area is that when you're using databases, you're already automation ready. Databases are built to be used in workflows. Databases are used to trigger automations and sequences when you're using different SaaS or different platforms or different apps. All of this happens without human intervention being necessary. No manual entry needed, no manual data capture needed. So databases are already automation ready. That's not true of a spreadsheet, and definitely not true of something physical like a Rolodex, right? So spreadsheets will store data, but databases allow you to actually activate that data to make it far more useful for you in your business than if it's just stored on one of the more traditional forms of recording information to a list. Another key advantage with databases is the use of interfaces, right? Think about it. If you can remember back to when, hold on 1 second. Smash says, are there different ways of data sheets, or just one standard procedure? Now, if you say a data sheet, you're probably talking about more of like a spreadsheet, which is what I'm talking about, being more the traditional way of storing information, like an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, right? Databases are very similar in structure to that. But the things you can do with a database are far greater than what you can do with a traditional spreadsheet, right? Like if I were to pull up my databases from one of my apps, it looks very similar to like an Excel spreadsheet, right? Because it's storing information. But again, traditional spreadsheets and especially a physical list like a Rolodex don't allow you to access that information and manipulate it the way you can when it's stored in a database, which again goes back to the first advantage, which was architecture. So another advantage again is the interfaces. Now, a way to think about this advantage when it comes to your list in your business, your marketing list, your list of products, or whatever that list may be, is how do you interact with that information? If you can think back to when computers, when you had to execute commands by typing in the path of the file you were trying to open or execute, and you had to actually type in commands. I remember that back in the like 90s and stuff, man, number munchers and all that shit in school. If you can think back or remember that far, if you were around back then you know that today's computing, because of operating systems like Windows, is way more effective. You can do way more. It makes the computer way less challenging and intimidating when it comes to use, right? Because now instead of having to type commands, you can look at icons and just click it instead of having to remember, what do I type? // or whatever it was back then, /run and all that stuff, right? That was a lot to learn, but that was how computing worked back in the day. But now, because you have interfaces, operating systems like Android, iOS, Windows, the way you interact with these systems allow you to do way more. The same applies to our databases, because databases allow you to, or interfaces allow you to interact with those databases. There are three very, very, very key areas that they are superior. One, fewer human errors. If you have to write down all the information about your clients or the people on your email list or who you're going to send out text messages to, if you're writing that down, there's always the chance that human error is going to be a factor, because we are human, right? Oh, you welcome. Smash. Of course, bro. Right? So anytime you have to manually do something in business, there is the risk of human error. When you have visual interfaces, that becomes pretty much a non-factor, right? Information has to be validated when you're using these type of systems. What does that mean? When you get ready to set up an account on like a social media platform or a bank account or something online, they tell you what the format of your password has to be. It has to be at least this number of capital letters and special characters and one number or something like that, right? They tell you what that password that you're setting up has to look like. That's a form of validation, because if the password does not fit that format, it can't be accepted. So whenever you have systems, and that's just a simple way that we're all familiar with, but that's one of the ways that you eliminate human error, that you validate the information that's going into your system, that removes the possibility of human error in your system, in your list, right? And this helps you maintain the integrity across the list, no matter how much information is contained in that list, whether it's a couple names on your marketing list or whether you have tens or hundreds of thousands of businesses or individuals in your marketing list, right? Also, consistent data entry, because you're using structured input forms. We're all used to filling out of forms. You purchased something online, you had to fill out a form to do it. You subscribe to something online, you had to fill out a form to do it. Using forms ensures that everyone inputs information the same way. So that again eliminates the chance that some unpredictable, unforeseen error is going to occur when it comes to your information that you're recording. Remember, this presentation is based off of the statement that the money is in the list. So in order for your list keeping practices in your business to actually be profitable and beneficial to you, you need accurate information in your list. Just having information or just having data isn't the point. The point is for it to be accurate, right? That way it can actually be useful to you. So make sure that the data that goes into your list, into your system, is always done the same way consistently. You remove that error, or that element of error, I should say. Also, the actions that you can take through interfaces, be it filtering out. If you only want to look at the customers who are female, that's just a click away. If you only want to look at the customers who live in a certain zip code, right? That's just a click away. If you need to send out 1,000 emails, that's just as simple as sending out one email, because it's just a click away, right? Imagine sending out, back in the day, when you had to send out mailers, and if you didn't have the money to do it yourself, right? Let's say you bought a small address list from some list seller back in the day, right? And you want to send out some mailers to try to generate some leads or generate some clients or customers for your business. Imagine the time that it took to prep and send out just 1,000 mailers, right? And if you've ever done that, then you know that the return rate on mailers is not the worst in marketing, but it's not like you send out 1,000, you're going to get 500 back. If you send out 1,000 and you get 5 back, you probably did good, you know? But you would have had to spend all that time and energy and resources to send out 1,000 mailers, when with today's interfaces and the way we use data, you can send out those 1,000 contacts through an email, through an SMS, a text message, instantly with the click of a button, right? So the way we can interact with and manipulate the data that we have in our databases through interfaces is the same thing as when Windows and operating systems got introduced into computing. It made it possible to do way more. So these interfaces that we use, every time you pick up an app on your phone and click it, you're using an interface. Every time you use a device, you're using an interface. Every time you use your laptop, you're interacting with a machine through an interface. When the information that you're interacting with is your client or your customer data and information, what you can do with that begins to become almost limitless, right? And that's why today's list, which we use databases for, not traditional spreadsheets and Rolodexes and notebooks with the customer name and phone number written down. Nope, not today, right? Another big thing about today is we all use devices and technology so much every day on a regular basis, right? It's easy to capture people's data. It's easy to build lists. It's easy to get customer information nowadays without doing any type of manual entry, without having to use paper forms or really any kind of complicated technology. But what's happening behind the scenes is you have APIs and integrations working together. The reason you can sign into social media with a Google account just by clicking a button, sign in with Google, is because of things like APIs and integrations. If you're not familiar with those, that's fine. You don't have to be, as long as you understand that today's tools, they all can talk to each other. The apps that I build for myself and for clients can talk to all of these other platforms. They're all able to integrate and communicate with each other. So the ability to get customer data and to build really powerful marketing lists is unprecedented with today's tools. And once again, you're using things like forms and apps, text messages, emails. All this stuff can feed directly into your CRM, into your customer relationship management software, whether it be something custom built or another platform. All right. And maybe most importantly is the fact that customers, our prospective customers, society as a whole is already trained and accustomed to using digital systems. Everybody buys things online at some point nowadays, right? Everyone has ordered some from Amazon or eBay or whatever the case may be. So that's not something new anymore. So that resistance is gone from our prospective clients and customers. So today, using these tools and methods is so much easier to build really, really powerful and valuable data. So let's talk about the danger of undervaluing data, right? And my thought about this in preparing this outline for this presentation was I look at not valuing the data that we have access to in business as a vulnerability. I don't look at it as something that it may or may not benefit you, but it's not going to hurt you. No, it's definitely a vulnerability, and undervaluing that data will definitely hurt you. And we're going to talk about specifically how. So let's understand why. When you look at these companies nowadays, why do these big tech companies have such huge, massive valuations? Huh? Why are they worth hundreds of billions of dollars on the public market? Let's look at Meta, aka Facebook, right? That behavioral data from 1 billion plus users around the world powers advertising precision that's worth hundreds of billions for them as a company. Layman's terms, if I go on Facebook right now and run an ad to promote anything that I have to sell, I can target you based on your music preference, whether you like Future or whether you like NBA YoungBoy. I can target you whether you like country music, whether you like hip hop, what fashion brands you like, what content creators you like. I can target you by everything that you do on any of Facebook's platforms. That's why they track all of that information, because that's the value. It allows businesses like myself and yourself to pay them for access to that data, right? Google, search data reveals intent. If I run a Facebook ad, that ad is like fishing, right? It's like going out there with a rod and reel and casting out into the water and actively looking for a fish. Google works a little different. Google's more like a trap. Google's like when the animal comes looking for the food and you just got what looks like a regular little box sitting there with some corn in it, and the prey comes to you, right? Because the search intent of that animal was to find something to eat. That's how Google functions. That search data is worth billions of dollars. The ability to look into people's intent and why they buy things. If you ever watch my Street Money videos, I think it was might have been episode 102, if I'm not mistaken, that I talked about the power in knowing why. In marketing, the ability to answer the question why is like the gold standard. When you know why people do something, when you know why someone is going to buy your product versus someone else's, you can almost predict and pull the trigger and make as much money and sell as much as you want to, because you already know why they're going to do it. That is the holy grail of marketing, in my opinion, being able to answer the question why, right? So between the data that Meta can provide you about people's behavior and the data that Google can provide you about their intentions, right? Remember earlier in the presentation, one of the advantages over databases over spreadsheets was the ability to use the data predictively, not just to look back at it historically and see what has happened, but to use it to predict future decisions, right? So when you combine behavioral data and search data, it aids you in being able to more accurately try to predict what a customer or a potential customer may or may not do in the near or far or distant future or whatever the case may be, right? I know y'all get this. Because it's legit hustle. So this channel for the hustlers. So if you're watching this, I'm going to assume that some things about business are basic for you. You already understand that. There's no need for me to explain certain things. And again, I work in web development and consulting. So I try not to get too techie about information like this. But if you're going to survive in 2026 going forward, if you're going to survive in the modern business world, you too have to know how these things work. You don't have to be a social media butterfly. You ain't got to be out there with 1 million subscribers, but you do need to know how the platforms and how these systems actually function, right? Amazon, purchase patterns and browsing history allows you to, or search engines to recommend purchases and information and items to people on various platforms. They don't even have to be on Amazon for it to do it. You may be familiar with the term retargeting and how retargeting in online advertising works. The ability to make ads literally follow a person around the internet so that everywhere they go, they're seeing that ad. You can do that. I can do that. We all have access to do that through these platforms if you're willing to pay for it, right? But all of that capability is based on data. These companies are not in it to unite mankind and bring us together. They want your data. They want your information because they know the value of data. That's why data centers are popping up all over the place. They're terrible for the economy from what I have seen. I haven't done a lot of research into data centers, but for what I know about them, they're terrible for the economy. They're terrible for the environment around them. They raise the energy costs of the people that live near them. They're terrible, right? But why are they popping up everywhere? Because these companies know that in today's world, data is like having cash. If you have data, it's the same as having cash in today's world. And like cash is king, whoever has the most data is king, right? They can make the best decisions. They have the most information. They have the widest range of information, be it from government to finance to how you raise your children. The person who has access to the most information right now is who wins from that standpoint, not necessarily in life, right? So now you understand why these governments and people, these corporations, your BlackRocks and whatnot, and what's the other one I was just looking at the other day? I can't remember the name, but now you understand what all that is about, what these data centers are actually about. Because this data is stored value, just like cash in a bank is stored value. Having a lot of data is just like having a high interest savings account, some type of high yield investment account, right? Having that data can generate returns better, quicker, and more consistently for you than not having it. So that's why you see what you see happening with these large tech companies and these data centers. Data is like cash. So we have evolved far beyond just building a marketing list. We have evolved far beyond just having a list of contacts, a cold calling list. We've moved far beyond that with the tools that we have and the way business actually functions in 2026. Another thing, look at AI. It's all over the place. But what gave birth to AI? Data science. Data science. AI itself is based on data, large language models, LLMs. The ability for that machine to reference millions of sources of data, aka information, at the speed of lightning, is what gives you the capabilities of AI, the ability to process data that quickly. But it's based on data science, machine learning, algorithms that allow a machine to use, interpret, and manipulate data in ways that sometimes we as humans couldn't have, not, I won't say ever had been, but it definitely wouldn't be as simple as it is now without the use of the machine and the machine learning, right? Just like a calculator. Would you say, Smash, ever notice they don't do census anymore? Yeah. It's almost as if they have more data to know who's who and where just by information from these sites. Yeah, so check this out. As somebody in tech, I can assure you that the government has no need to send out people to like spy on you anymore. We carry around the spies with us everywhere we go. The cell phones, the tablets, hell, the cars now. And how are they spying on us? Through data. Your cars can talk to the red lights now, and the cell phones talk to the car, which talks to the cell phone towers, right? All of that is based off of the ability to capture and transfer data. So all of the not all, but the majority of the technological advances that we see, these big leaps and gains that we see in what the technology can do, is pretty much all based on data and who has the access to the most, right? So for us as business owners, we have to know that we have data, we have information about our clients, about our prospective clients and customers that is very, very valuable. And if we don't recognize the value of that data, then we're leaving our business vulnerable, right? So having a strategy for what to do with the data is a business strategy in 2026, right? Those of us that learn to treat data like an asset, because that's exactly what it is. Those of us who learn to actually treat the data that we have access to as the asset that it is will be able to outmaneuver, outgrow, outlast those that don't. And if you're concerned about what you see in the economy, if you're concerned about what you see governments doing, if you're concerned about those things, then one of the best ways to combat that, as far as actions that you can take, is to arm yourself with knowledge, right? To arm yourself with the information. Information like this may not seem that important, but if you have companies today that are worth hundreds of billions, some of them getting into the trillions now, worth $1 trillion and things like that. And a lot of them are based off of data. Who has the data? Who has the information? Right? Then we can't afford to overlook or undervalue the data that we have access to and be using it properly. So let's look at an actual use case, a real life example of how this helps us. It helps you to grow without overpaying, right? How does this data do that? This principle is based on the fact that it's always cheaper and more profitable to sell to an existing customer than to try to acquire a new one. It always costs less money. It always takes less energy. It always takes less coercion and less sales tactics or whatever to sell someone that has already bought from you than it does to go out there and convince a person that never met you to buy from you for the first time. That's just a principle in business that most of us, again, on this channel, should be familiar with. So considering that organic growth is more profitable for us as a business, this is where data starts to shine and how we use it in modern business. So this is how this data that we've been talking about, these new forms of lists, aka databases, enhances our organic growth. Personalized follow-ups. Anytime you can address someone by their name, anytime you can address someone in a communication in a way that makes it feel personal to them, people value that. If you've done any market research in the last few years in the tech era that we live in, then you know that personalized touch makes a big difference when it comes to how people view and rate and rank businesses nowadays. Right? Instead of an email that's very generic, one that states them by their name or specifically mentions their business. Being able to send out an automated message that feels personalized every time a client birthday rolls around. All of them, or your customers get SMS messages on their birthdays. Maybe a little incentive to come in and buy something on their birthday. Whatever the case may be, right? That personalized touch is possible through data. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need complicated tools to do things like that. Not in 2026. That's basic in 2026. But the impact that it has on our customers, the ability that it has to enhance our organic growth is not to be underestimated, because that personalized touch matters. Also, behavior-based messaging. Again, instead of generic messaging, remember what we talked about lists and categories and how important it was to be able to segment a list that you have, especially when you're talking about marketing or sales. Now, instead of just being able to base it on those descriptive terms, you can base it on actual behavior. Behavior-based messaging. So it's no generic messaging, no generic texts and emails and things like that. Communications that are actually triggered by actual customer actions. Something like viewing, if they look at a product, you have the ability to message them. You can use pop-ups to stop a person when the mouse senses that they're getting ready to go back, or the interface senses that they're getting ready to scroll away or go back away from your landing page or site or whatever the case may be. You can literally have something pop up and try to get their attention before they do that now. That's behavior based. And that's based on data, right? Timed offers. Interaction patterns show you exactly when customers are ready to buy. So if you know when they're ready to buy, you can focus your time, you can focus your efforts, you can focus your messaging when they are ready to buy. Again, it's like fishing, right? You go out there, you cast all day. You might know it's big bass over there, but if they not ready to bite and ready to eat, it don't matter, do it? You're not gonna catch anything. Now you may be able to trigger them into a strike. And you can do that with customers. You may be able to trigger a person into a purchase at a time when maybe they wasn't normally considering it. But if you don't make the effort, if you don't make the outreach, if the communication never happens, not even that is possible. So the more data you have, the more ways you have to manipulate and use that data, the more you're able to focus on things that help your company grow from within. Again, this is about not having to spend money on paid ads. This is how you grow without having to constantly spend so much time and energy trying to attract new customers, but allow your business to grow organically. Again, it's always cheaper and more profitable to sell to an existing customer than it is to try to find and track and convince and persuade a new person who never heard of you, right? That's organic growth, that ability. The more data your business has access to, the more ways you have to manipulate and interface and interact with that data, the more you are capable of doing with that, and the more ways you can use that data to grow your company, right? So you get to strike up the right balance. You know, a lot of times in business, I know personally, everybody ideally, would love to grow organically. We would love to post a video online or post some content on social media, and things just happen, right? Growth just happen. It goes viral. And we all strive for that moment, but to be honest with you, it's not very likely that that's how our growth happens nowadays on these platforms, right? They all want you to pay something. Organic growth is not dead, but it ain't got much breath left in it either, if you know what I'm saying, right? So when you have a focus as a business owner of storing, using, and valuing the data that you have access to, you get to create a stronger organic growth engine inside your business. Email still works. SMS still works. Regular website landing pages still work. You don't have to have a voice AI agent to call people and all that. That's not necessary. The basic things that work in digital marketing, advertising, in the internet era, they still work, y'all. So you have access to an email database. Then you can focus on building and running campaigns that allow you as a small business, despite what's going on around us, to better capitalize on organic growth, to even stimulate organic growth. Give you a real life example. So the other day, I was working on some HTML for some emails for an event I have coming up on the 28th of this month, right? So I got the idea. I was like, well, if I'm gonna be sending out hundreds of emails all the time, why ain't I using my email, since I'm doing that hundreds of times a week? Why ain't I using that to also promote the channel, right? To help grow the channel. So I designed a little console type of thing that goes at the bottom of my emails that will highlight 2 videos from my YouTube channel. And I'll probably just have the same videos, for a month or so as a way to try to promote it organically. But if I didn't have a list of hundreds of businesses that I can email to promote my events, I wouldn't be able to promote organically my YouTube content and my social media content organically. But because I have those lists and because I have those means to message them when I want to, on my terms, how I want to, with the content that I choose, because I have access to all that data and that capability, I can not only promote my events, but I can organically promote my YouTube channels or my social channels, and you can do the same. It costs me little to nothing to send out thousands of emails every month. Little to nothing. At the push of a button for the most part, right? So why wouldn't I use that avenue to also promote my growing, struggling YouTube channel? You know what I mean? So that was an idea I came up with on like Friday. By Saturday, I had the code designed and it plugged into my emails. The technology and the tools, when you have them at your access, your business moves so much faster, because when you realize pivots, when you realize you have an opportunity to make a change, to use something different, to do something differently. You don't have to wait on no department to approve it. You don't have to wait for some printing company to design the flyers, and then you don't have to have somebody try to distribute all 10,000 of them for you to get the best return. And right? Nah, that's 20th century business. This is 2026. So you can incorporate these things into your business at the I want to say the speed of light, but that's you all get what I'm saying. Very, very fast. Very fast. And that's powerful, especially when you have access to data. Right? So because you focus on, just like, again, the money is in the list. So because as an entrepreneur or business owner, you make it a point to focus on data collection, database, building up your databases. Because you make that a focus, now you can use paid advertising to supplement what you do, not replace. Now you're in charge of the organic growth because you have made getting that data, building that list, the same principle. Remember I said at the beginning, it didn't change. The money is still in the list. But now instead of Rolodexes and spreadsheets, it's databases and forms, right? So imagine if you could have 70% of your sales coming from organic marketing, organic growth, and 30% from paid every month. Just think about that. How much more stable would your business be? Even in a chaotic world. Now, I'm not telling you that if you can do this and because you have databases and because you have access to data, that you can somehow avoid the going-ons of the environment around us. What happens economic-wise, government-wise around us, it's going to impact our lives, yes. But when you have access to not just data, but the right data, you can make better decisions in times like that. You can strategize your way during tough times better because you have access to more information that may show you avenues that you wouldn't have been able to see if you didn't know that, let's say, for example, you didn't know that women bought your product more often on Friday than Mondays. And here you are spending most of your time trying to sell and having your women's sales on Mondays when you should move it to Friday or whatever the case may be, right? So having access to that information and data allows us to make better decisions, even in times like this, even in times, especially, I should say, in times of uncertainty. And these aren't one-time benefits. These benefits compound. They build over time. The more consistently that we're able to incorporate these types of habits in our businesses, valuing the data, making sure we prioritize collecting and storing data and having access to information about our customers, about their habits, where they're shopping at, what are they spending money on, when are they most active, how is the economy affecting them, right? Having access to that data, that information has a compounding effect because if you can consistently make better decisions, how is it possible that you don't grow? If you consistently make better decisions, how does growth become impossible? If you get your company, if you get your business to operating at its optimal pace, right? It's performing optimal. It's doing everything just like it should be. How is growth impossible? It's not impossible. It would be impossible to try to prevent growth, right? And so by prioritizing and not undervaluing the data that we have access to, we can put ourselves in our positions and our companies in those positions, literally, right? Yeah, it's rough outside, y'all. You know, there's a lot of crazy shit going on out here in these streets. People like they lost their minds. But guess what? We still got to function. Because unless the world ends, we still got families to take care of. We still have lives to live. So regardless of what's going on outside that door, we can't give up. What we have to do is get better, get smarter, get more capable. We don't have to get more ruthless. We don't have to get more selfish. Just get better. Right? So what's some key takeaways from this presentation? Lists still matter, but having data matters more. Yes, contact information is still essential, but that's just the beginning. The real value comes from what you know about those contacts and how you use that information, more than just having the contact information. And that's where data differs from just a contact list. Databases turn lists into assets. If you can move your business from using spreadsheets to databases, this isn't just a technical upgrade, it's a strategic transformation. Because remember, interfaces, these unlock consistency and the ability to scale, removing human error, allowing us to automate data input, manipulation, to share data with other platforms and sources. It's kind of hard to share data from Google ads into a Microsoft Excel sheet. It's possible, I'm sure. But it's much simpler to just use a database, right? In today's business world, data is what fuels everything that matters. It's the reason for AI. Data. It's the reason for companies that's worth hundreds of billions into the trillions of dollars. Data. It's the reason you see data centers popping up all over the place, even though they're terrible for the environment. They're terrible on us as human beings. And in my opinion, they're not necessary, you know, but that's the race, because these people understand that today's world, data is like cash. And if cash is king, then whoever has the most data is king, right? And that's what they're in the race for. It's not necessary, and I'm not advocating that. I'm just pointing out that that is the value of data. They recognize that, but do you? Do I? You don't need a billion users. You don't need a billion people on your list like Facebook. But who would be mad if they had a list of 10,000? Right? So ignoring the data, if you ignore the value of the data, you're not this. This says ignoring the future. I'm going to say you won't have a future, because the future of business is based on principles like this more so than they used to be. Data is just one of them. Having access to it, places to store unique data, keeping it safe, and being able to actually use it in your business. If you ignore that, then, you know, it's my prediction you probably won't be in business much longer. So the money isn't just in the list anymore. It's what the list knows. And that information about that list is what we call data. And you got to have it. All right. So I appreciate everybody for pulling up on the SMB podcast for this episode. Remember, the money is still in the list. List building is still a foundational, fundamental function of business. And if you're not doing it, you should be doing it, even in 2026. But how you do it, what you do with the information, how you use the information has evolved far beyond what it was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And if you're still doing things in business the way you did 20 years ago, you probably won't be around much longer into the future, because the technology moves so fast. But anyway, I appreciate it, man. A couple announcements before we get up out of here. Again, For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, my name is Mike, aka Mr. Legit Hustle. And I want to thank all of you all for tuning in to the SMB Podcast, the podcast for small businesses, hustlers, entrepreneurs, anybody out here getting it on their own. This is the podcast for you. So I appreciate y'all, man. Again, Smash, as always, brother, I appreciate you pulling up homes, keeping me company, and showing support, man, to my little channel, my little thing I got going on here, man. Hopefully you get some from this and you'll subscribe, like, you know the routine. Another thing, I've started back having my workshops. So if you're interested in attending one of my very, very unique and creative group consultation sessions, they're not sales pitches. They're not just random information. They're workshop based, right? So that when you leave any of my events, you leave with actionable things that you can actually use in your business to actually see some benefit from it, not just some random head knowledge, all right? So if you're interested, check out the link in the description. Also on my YouTube channel, the website is events.𝐬𝐿GH&x.net. And that was where you can get any information about any events that I have coming up. Again, I have one on the 28th of this month. So if you're interested in checking out, hit up the events link. And man, yeah, hopefully I get a chance to see you in the house, man. But either way, again, man, I appreciate you for pulling up, spending some time with me. And I decided I was going to play this song on the outro. It's a little more somber, a little more serious, but I was just kind of in that mood today to play something like that. So we're going to ride out to my song, Hood Angels, man. This is a shout out to everybody who's lost a loved one, every loved one that we've lost, but especially the little babies, man, especially little kids. You feel me? So we're going to ride out the Hood Angels today, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate you pulling up, and hopefully I catch you on the next episode. It's your homie Legit Hustle, man. Y'all know my motto, hustle smarter, man. Man, this is for everybody that we lost, man. Especially my brother, 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐿GH&x. You know what I'm gonna do without you. Them babies. Y'all, I know I'm wide awake, still feels like I'm dreaming. Children dying on the street, and mama's always grieving. Every time I look around, man, another nigga bleeding. And you can't trust your friends, cause some niggas stay scheming. Trapped in our own hoods, always misunderstood. Family say you're no good, till you wish a nigga would. Turn on the TV and they callin' niggas thugs. Try and convince the world all niggas sell drugs. Instigating genocide, it's us versus us. So there's no more fucking love, and there's no more fucking trust. Feels like a lie saying there'll be better days when you're peeking over shoulders, case you gotta duck a straight. Our elders losing faith, too hurt to even pray. Your nigga lose it all, throw it away with one mistake. The black family is damn near a myth. The people that the most high gave the greatest gift. Survive being colonized, some survive the ships. Turn pain into the poetry that our lips. The same words we taught the world how to dance, nigga. How to lean your hat, nigga. How to rock your pants. Turned on each other, started using our hands to gun each other down instead of building up our man. Instead of love, since we only share our pain. If we turn that shit around, man, there's so much more to gain. You say I'm lying, then how would you explain? There's a whole fucking list, nigga. Let's look at some names. Look at Pop, look at Big, look at Dog, X10, Fat Pat, Camouflage. Look at Dollar, Soldier Slim. Mac Dre was a legend, and look what we did to him. Killing off our brightest for some motherfucking gems. I cried when Nipsey died, seen this shit a million times. On top of all that, I had just buried mine. How could it really be? They both was 33, so I see Black Sam, can't help but see me. I know the pain, know the shame, know the hurt of looking at your brother on a motherfucking shirt when he stood up like a man for the turf. And the turf turned around and they put him in the dirt. tell me what's the reason. I'm asking, really pleading. I ain't getting no answer, so my heart turned to cement. Brag about taking caps, how we busting straps. But little babies dying, why they taking naps? We let the world change us, tell us we all gangsters, and our women hoes when we really hood angels. They never told us even angels stumble and lose their wings sometimes just to keep you humble. That is really not the same when a nigga throw the game and a nigga just get tripped and he fumble. That's not the time to crumble. I promise, man, I'm not just trying to sun you. It's only out of love I'm trying to warn you. I picked up his pen and what came out was tears. I thought they were mine. The most I said they his. He told me write this down and give it to his kids. Tell them who they are, what it ain't and what it is. His little hood angels. Yeah, nigga. Little hood angels. And when I first decided I was gonna drop some music and share my thoughts with the world, man, I ain't doing this to make no nigga bob their head, man, tap their foot. You know what I'm saying? Somebody gotta speak up. It might cost me my life, and I might say so one day. That caused me, you know? Somebody gotta stand up. Somebody gotta speak up.